2026 is likely Deshaun Watson's last dance at being an NFL starting quarterback. We'll talk about it coming up on the Locked On Browns podcast.
You are Locked On Browns, your daily Cleveland Browns podcast. Part of the Locked On Podcast Network, your team every day.
What's up, Dog Pound? I'm Spencer German, your host of the Locked On Browns podcast, and proudly covering your Cleveland Browns each and every single day in the land and on the road, including here in Indy at the NFL Combine. 2026 is setting up to be Deshaun Watson's last chance to be a starter in this league. Todd Monken, by the way, is giving him the benefit of the doubt. I'm not necessarily buying what he's selling. And this quarterback competition will be between more players than who's currently in the room right now. It's just a matter of who. I do want to thank you for being in every day with the Locked On Browns podcast, making us your first listen every single day, part of the Locked On Podcast Network, which is now the #1 sports podcast network. Thanks to your listenership, thanks to your viewership, thanks to your support. So thank you, thank you, thank you. Keeping it 100. This legitimately could be, this upcoming season in 2026, Deshaun Watson's last opportunity to be a starter, not just for the Cleveland Browns, because we know how that story sort of ends. We understand what the contract situation is. We know the Browns are going to try to get out from underneath it as soon as possible, likely next offseason, June 1st, and spread the money out, eat it, whatever. And so I'm not even just talking on a localized level being a starter. I'm talking across the National Football League. This is probably going to be his last chance. Like, he's going to be in this competition one way or another. We're going to talk about other options that could come in because more names keep popping up that could be on the Browns' radar potentially. And there's a chance here that he actually wins the starting job, which I do want to talk about that a little bit as well. But as far as him getting this opportunity and being part of this competition, like Deshaun, this is probably it for him. He hasn't been that quarterback that he was in his career when he was a top 5 guy since 2020. It's been going on 6 years now. Like, if he can't find some version of that, if he can't be a productive quarterback, who's going to – I understand, like, teams are always willing to take chances on guys, but who's going to be willing to take a chance on him at that point with everything that comes with it, with the deteriorated play? Like, it's not going to be worth it to anybody. This truly could be his last chance, or is going to be, in my opinion, his last chance to show I belong in this league, and I believe I belong as a starter in this league. I still think there'd be a team that would maybe take a chance on him as a backup. Like, the teams are always trying different things, and there's always like that, well, what if factor, which Todd Monken talked about. We'll get to that. But man, it feels like it is shaking out that way. And I'll say this too, like, this is the other part of this, because like, think about the reason I say this. The other part of this is that Deshaun is in a competition next year with like look at the room he's in, right? Look at the room that he finds himself in right now. He is going to be going up against 2 guys coming off of rookie seasons who gave you inconsistent play, and that, you know, there's maybe some hope that they can be something or turn into something in this league, especially with Shedeur Sanders. But he's got the experience on them. And in many ways, like, at least in terms of like the prospects that they were, he's got the athleticism on them, right? Like, Deshaun was always considered a great athlete, and he was coming out of college, one of the highest graded recruits or one of the highest graded players in his draft class. Like, he was expected to be the type of quarterback he used to be. So if you look at it in that lens of like who he's in this room with, who he's going to be going up against in this competition, it could be another veteran, it could be another rookie. If he can't beat out those guys, like, what is his place in this league? Where does he belong if he can't beat out these guys that he's in the room with? And there was a lot of talk last year at the end of last season. There was reporting done on this, that internally, when Deshaun was out in the field of practice, once he came back off the PUP list from the Achilles injury and he had been rehabbing, that internally they felt that he was still the best quarterback out there. that he was able to still sling the ball, was still playing at a high level, still looked like a really good quarterback. And my response to that was always, well, yeah, I'd hope so, given the state of the room, even this past season where it was, again, 2 rookies and Bailey Zappi. Like, yeah, you should. Deshaun Watson, the Deshaun Watson that we once knew, that he should look better than those guys out there. He's the more experienced quarterback. Again, there's reasons as to why he should absolutely, when he's out on the practice field, be performing at a higher level than some of the other guys that he's surrounded by in this specific situation and group. But we also have seen the results on the field. And that's the biggest difference. But we've seen the results in the field from all these guys, and it's been inconsistent. So, yes, he's going to get a chance to prove it. He may honestly, because of the factor that I just brought up, he should be looking like the best quarterback on the field during practice. He theoretically could win the job. I've tried to, maybe I don't even want to say I tried to, but I probably haven't talked about that part of this enough. The idea that he could win it. Part of it is I understand it's a touchy subject for a number of reasons. The fan base is so divided over the quarterback situation in general, but especially when it comes to Deshaun, there's so many people who are just over it and wish he wasn't on the roster this year, but he has to be because of his salary cap hit and the dead cap that would come with it if he's cut. So by default, he has to be here, and you got to kind of deal with him for another season. And so I'm so out on the idea that he's ever going to reclaim that version of himself that I haven't talked about it enough. But when you think about it in the parameters of who he's in that room with, the setup of the quarterback situation the Browns are in right now, he probably should still be the best quarterback in that room, theoretically. Can he prove it on the field? Is he actually that's what the Browns are going to have to find out as they hold this competition that they keep talking about here at the Combine, that they're going to hold with whatever other quarterbacks or options kind of come into focus here in the coming weeks and months. We'll see. But yes, I would expect that those guys wouldn't necessarily look as good as Deshaun Watson. And but again, how do you win it? Todd Monken talked about it, right? He doesn't choose the quarterback. They choose themselves by how they play in the field. And what did we just see play out last year in a quarterback competition? Joe Flacco looked like the best quarterback on the field during practice. Everybody saw it. The players saw it. The players knew. And then he started, when push came to shove, he wasn't good enough. He wasn't getting the results. They had to pivot. They go to Dillon, Gabriel. They go to Shedeur. That's how the season kind of plays out. They ended up trading Joe Flacco, as we obviously know as well. So on the field, if this is going to be decided at practice, on the field, through the work they're doing at the team facility, then yes, I do expect on some level that Deshaun's probably going to look better than 2 young quarterbacks that haven't seen the things that he's seen or done the things that he's done. He could walk away winning this job. And frankly, if he can't win the job and beat out those 2 guys, and maybe somebody else who comes in, then can he even still be a thought in this league? Can he even still be a player in this league? That's kind of what's at stake for him in 2026. This to me feels 100% like it's going to be his last chance, his last gasp to prove that he is still a football player worth investing in, worth being on some team, worth playing this sport. If he can't win this quarterback competition against the guys he at least that he's going up against right now, to be determined what else they add. What are you even doing in the league? That's the ultimate, going to be the ultimate testament that he no longer belongs if that's the case. So understanding that's kind of what's at stake for Deshaun here. If he still has interest in playing football, if he's still passionate about that, this is kind of like career on the line type stuff potentially, at least as far as being a starter goes. Because if you can't beat out the guys that are in that room right now, do you deserve to be a quarterback in this league at all, let alone a starter in this league? Now, all that said, Todd Monken is giving him the benefit of the doubt. As I've said numerous times, though, I am not buying what he's selling. We'll play you the clip. We'll talk about it coming up on the Locked On Browns podcast. Ever hired someone who looked good on paper but wasn't the right fit? If you did, you know how important that last part is. When you want candidates who truly match what you're looking for, you got to trust Indeed sponsored jobs. Hiring Indeed is all you need. Stop struggling to get your job post seen Indeed Sponsored Jobs puts your post at the top of the page and helps you reach the right candidates faster. As someone who's used Indeed not to hire people, but to apply for jobs, it's always nice to see those jobs at the top that are the sponsored jobs that fit what I'm looking for and frankly fit from a candidate standpoint, what those businesses are looking for. Spend more time interviewing candidates who check all the boxes with less stress, less time, and more results using Indeed Sponsored Jobs. Listeners of this show get a $75 sponsored job credit to give your job that premium placement it deserves. Just go to Indeed.com/LockedOnNFL. That's Indeed.com/LockedOnNFL right now and support the show by saying you heard about Indeed on this podcast. Terms and conditions apply. Hiring, do it the right way with Indeed. As the new year gets going, or continues going, I should say, because we're now almost 2 months into it, a lot of people are trying to simplify their routines. Dinner's a big one of those. Between busy work days, cold winter nights, packed schedules, having an easy, reliable dinner plan makes a huge difference, and that's where Home Chef comes in. Home Chef takes the stress out of cooking dinner by delivering fresh, pre-portioned ingredients right to your door with easy-to-follow recipes that actually taste great. They're rated #1 by users of other meal kits for quality, convenience, value, taste, and recipe ease. Listen, dinner in my house is probably the hardest meal of the day. My wife changes her mind half the time. She's not feeling certain things. Sometimes we just simply run out of ideas that we want to make. Home Chef offers 30 weekly options, including family-sized meals and different dietary choices. And more importantly, it saves time and money. For a limited time, Home Chef is offering my listeners 50% off their first box, free shipping, and free dessert for life. You don't want to miss out on that free dessert. I'm a big sucker for dessert. Go to homechef.com/lockedon. That's homechef.com/lockedon for 50% off your first box, free shipping, and free dessert for life. You must be an active subscriber to receive the free dessert. All right, so in the vein of talking about Deshaun Watson and this being his last opportunity and understanding, like, if you can't beat this current cast of quarterbacks out on this roster, what are you even doing in this league anymore? Todd Monken is at least saying the right things when it comes to how he feels about Deshaun Watson. Now, I have my thoughts on this messaging, but I'm going to play the clip here first where he essentially says, you give guys that were at one point that talented the benefit of the doubt.
I think any time that you have a player that at one time has exhibited the skill set at an elite level, I think you're always going to give them the benefit of the doubt that somehow we might be able to get that out of them again. And I think that's how you should look at every player. I've said that. You guys have heard me say it. I'm going to let it play out. I think it'd be completely unfair, just like it would be in any classroom setting, be it a history exam, and all the students walk in, and before they're actually given the exam, you give them a grade. Well, how would you give them a grade? Based on male, female, race, how they look, how they're dressed? I think that's unfair. Now, you're going to have some preconceived notions, obviously, because we have prior evidence, but that's up. I don't decide who plays. The players decide who plays. I've never decided who plays.
So all due respect to Todd Monken, and I understand what he's saying. Like, yeah, the idea of Deshaun Watson is still a good one, right? Like, if we had any evidence that he could still be that guy from 2020, who wouldn't sign up for that? Who wouldn't be excited about that if you're Todd Monken or any coach? That honestly, if that version of Deshaun Watson was still a thing, this Browns job probably would have been more important or more valuable or there would have been more interest in it from other candidates because you have a top 5 quarterback theoretically. But that ship, as I've said numerous times, has sailed, and I'm not convinced it's going to come back. He can say all he wants about, like, anytime you had a guy, we got to give him a chance, you know, even though recent evidence suggests it's not there. And I do, listen, I can wrap my head around the idea that it's fresh eyes, right? I've said a ton that Deshaun was not a fit for what Kevin Stefanski wanted to do offensively, philosophically, any of that. We know that now. It's why I thought the pairing was always kind of awkward, but when you're getting that talent, I get why Kevin Stefanski probably was like, I can make this work. I can try to figure this out. But now you're now you're in a situation where it's like new offensive guys coming in. Deshaun probably does actually fit more of what Todd Monken wants to do offensively in terms of the athleticism and the arm talent. Like that's the type of stuff he looks for. Look what he just had in Lamar Jackson, right? But again, all of this is in theory. It's what Deshaun used to be. And we're not talking about used to be like a year ago or used to be 2 years ago. We're talking about going on 6 years since we've seen that version of Deshaun Watson. We're talking about a twice ruptured Achilles in the same ankle. We're talking about a shoulder injury that required surgery. We're talking about all the off the field stuff and how that impacted him mentally, whatever. Like, you add it all up, and you're talking about a guy that we haven't seen play at that level in, again, going on 6 years. And understanding that, like, I don't know, I can't sit here and talk myself into that guy's coming back. I just can't. Maybe there's a lesser version of that where it's like he can be functional in Todd Monken's offense, and maybe that's why he wins the job, like I said, because he's got more talent and ability than the guys that he's currently in the room with, and that just stands out on the football field because he's the more experienced guy, and they think he's the guy they're going to start first. That certainly could play out that way, and I wouldn't be shocked if it does at this point. But do I think that guy from 2020 is coming back? No. And I'll say this, like, I think Todd is largely saying this because it's what you have to say. Like, I don't really know what else he's supposed to say in a way. Like, he's stuck here. The guy is going to be here in 2026 because of his contract. You're kind of stuck with it. So you got to make the most of it, right? And any coach would try to. So I don't blame him for having that wishful sort of approach or wishful thinking. I just don't buy that guy's ever coming back. And it's also worth noting that he was asked about the quarterback situation being the open competition. He gave the answer of, I think it's definitely competition. I don't know why it wouldn't be an open competition. I don't mean that harshly, but I don't think there's enough film over the last couple of years, one way or another, to say, boy, we have our starter at quarterback yet. That's an exact quote from him in the same press conference on Wednesday. He knows. He's not an idiot. Like, he recognizes that the tape is the tape. He even said that in the answer I played you of when he was talking about Deshaun. Like, we have preconceived notions because of what we've seen recently, and those things are valid. Like, the tape is the tape. They don't have a starting quarterback. They can't definitively say Deshaun's going to be the guy because they don't have evidence he can be the guy. Same thing right now with Dillon Gabriel. Same thing right now, obviously, with Shedeur Sanders, who I think has the way he talked about Shedeur on Wednesday was interesting because he highlighted the elite playmaking ability and what he brings to the table in that regard. So I think there's some remnants there of, hey, if he gets the right coach, maybe he can become something. And that's what's intriguing. I'd rather see that than the guy who I don't think has it anymore. And there's nothing really left to learn or prove with Deshaun. I'd rather see what I can learn or prove with Shedeur. But regardless, like, you have preconceived notions about this group because it's what the evidence we have is. And I get trying to go into a sort of a fresh perspective, and I can appreciate that. But he knows the situation he's in. He knows that these quarterbacks in general haven't done enough to cement themselves in any direction as the starting quarterback or the QB1 for this football team. And so that's why he's calling it a competition. He's going to let it be sorted out on the field. And like I said, first segment, that could end with Deshaun being the guy. But do I think that means he's going to be the guy because he's going to look like he did in 2020? No. If he wins it, it's because he was the best version of quarterback they could get on the practice field. And it still might not be great, but it's just better than maybe the other options if that's how it goes. I'm leaving the door open on the possibilities that he could win it out just because he's the more experienced guy. We've heard so much about him behind the scenes, talking to guys, how he worked closely with Shedeur and the things that he's teaching them. Again, I'm firmly in the camp that if it's between the people in the room right now and that's where it ends up falling, I want to see Shedeur. But Deshaun's going to get a legitimate shot, as we've talked about now. And, I applaud Todd for saying the right things and trying to lean into the idea that, like, yeah, the guy was an immense talent. So, of course, we think that there's a chance there. But we all deep down, I think, know the truth here, which is the version of Deshaun Watson that the Browns thought they were getting when they traded for him in 2022 isn't there anymore. It's a watered down, reduced version maybe that they can get something out of, but it certainly is not that version. And even if he wins the job, I'm not going to sit here and think that it means all of a sudden print this, schedule the Super Bowl parade because they found their franchise quarterback that they had traded for years later. The other thing too is like the NFL changes fast. You're out 1 year, you're out multiple years, 6 years of like in and out of the lineup, injuries, suspensions, all those things. That all impacts like your ability to play football at a high level when things are changing. So defenses are doing even small little things differently. And like he's a smart player, so I'm sure he sees some of those things and recognizes some of those things. But it's different when you're out there and the bullets are flying and you're on the field. I'm not holding out any hope that the Browns are ever going to see that version of Watson ever. All that said, Shedeur Sanders, Deshaun Watson, and who else could be competing for the starting job? I will talk about some of those options coming up next on the Locked On Browns podcast. Have you ever wanted to experience the NBA Finals live and in person? FanDuel is giving you a chance to turn that dream into a reality with their NBA sweepstakes. Here's how it works. You use your profit boost on any NBA future, and you'll automatically be entered for a shot at an NBA Finals trip for two. That's right, flights, tickets, the whole experience for two. If you're already looking on the board and thinking about teams that can make a deep run, this is the perfect time to lock it in. Maybe, for example, you think the Cavs, after the big trade deadline they had, are that team. Honestly, you might be right. And if you're feeling bold enough, you can put some money on the Cavs, use your profit boost on them. And not only could your pick cash, you could also be sent on a trip to the NBA Finals. Visit FanDuel.com to get started. Use your profit boost on an NBA future and get entered for a chance to win a trip to the NBA Finals. Play your game with FanDuel, the official sports betting partner of the NBA. All right, I do want to remind you to become part of the Everydayer Club. If you haven't done so already, it's your chance to get the audio version of the show ad-free. You can join a members-only Discord channel as well, which I'm obviously in, talking to you guys as much as I can. It's an opportunity for you to experience the show in a sort of a different way. So please head on over to lockedonbrowns.supercast.com or check out the link in the show notes to learn more. All right, so from this point forward, the Browns' goal, both at the Combine here the rest of the week and moving forward into the weeks leading into free agency when they'll make some of these big decisions, the first of which is going to be whether or not Joel Bitonio is coming back or not, because he has to decide if he's going to retire by March 10th and then free agency starts on March 11th. The goal here for the Browns, though, as far as the quarterback position is concerned, is figuring out who else they want to compete with Shedeur Sanders and Deshaun Watson. And I guess Dillon Gabriel, who, like this week, Andrew Berry alluded to the idea that he's not out of the mix. Todd Monken mentioned Dillon as like, I'm excited to work with him too. I think he mentioned that he hadn't necessarily interacted with Dillon face to face, like versus where he's seen Shedeur in the building already. But, that he's excited to see him and what he saw from him on tape. So, right, they're framing it as all these guys still have a shot. I still maintain I don't think Dillon's going to be here long term. I don't know if that means he gets traded during free agency because they do like to keep 4 quarterbacks on the roster, so maybe he would just be the 4th guy. And they let him compete, but he won't end up getting the job, and then they'll trade him before training camp or whatever, or after veteran mini camp or whatever. Like, we'll see how that sort of plays itself out. But I'm sort of, it's probably wrong of me to do, but I am kind of just not thinking him as big of a factor because someone is going to have to go. I'm convinced they're adding another quarterback, which we're going to talk about here in a second. And so understanding that, like, who gets the short straw? I think Dillon Gabriel, when he was a Kevin Stefanski guy anyway, I think he ends up being sort of the odd man out. But whether you think Dillon's a factor or not, like, it's Shedeur, it's Deshaun, it's Dillon potentially, and then who? That's the big question that they have to figure out from this point forward. And as I sit here today, my feeling is that it's going to be a veteran. And the reason I feel that way is just because adding somebody in this draft class is pretty much anybody after Mendoza, who we generally consensusly can say is going to go number 1 overall. I don't know anybody that has mocked or said anything differently. all these guys pretty much are kind of projects. Drew Aller's a big project. I think Cade Klubnik's a big project. Nussmeier's the one that I'm the most intrigued by, as I've talked about, because I think he's the most, going into last year, I felt he was the most pro ready. And then there was the injury situation that held him back, and I wonder how much that really deterred him and what that means for once he gets to the NFL and he's healthy, how he can sort of manage that. So we'll see. But yeah, I Ty Simpson is another option. And honestly, Todd Monken talked about Ty Simpson on Wednesday as somebody he was familiar with from his days at Georgia. And, he was obviously at Bama. And, I think they've recruited him a little bit or talked to him during the recruiting process, so they knew his game and he likes what he brings to the table. They have to decide if they want to get in that business. But even doing something like that comes with, this idea that it's going to take time. The things that we're saying about Dillon, the things that we're saying about Shedeur, hey, it was year one. They need more time. They need more weapons on offense. They need more help. They can't do it all alone. Those things all apply to a rookie too. There's going to be growing pains. It's going to take time. And so is the best option to sign up for another young quarterback who kind of has to learn and go. Is that guy going to be plug and play, I guess is my point. And I don't think any of these guys after Mendoza are at this stage. Somebody might talk themselves into one being plug and play, but I don't see it that way. So for me, it does feel like as I talk about the goal from here being, all right, you leave the combine, getting a sense of how you feel about the rookie guys, you prepare for the free agency coming up in a couple weeks, and you get a sense of how you feel about the veteran guys, and you decide who else is going to be part of this quote-unquote competition that we believe is going to be largely between Shedeur Sanders and Deshaun Watson and then potentially Dillon Gabriel. And there's some different options out there. There's some different ways to play it, obviously. Malik Willis is the top free agent on the board. Sounds like the Browns are going to have some interest in him. Anthony Richardson has now become available. I do want to map this out probably in my shorter episode later today, how the maybe ranking the options or deciding how high priority certain options are for the Browns. We'll get into that. But it could even just be something as simple as a veteran who they think can just compete for the job and not somebody they have to trade for or not somebody they have to go spend the top of the market money for in this year's free agency. So there's going to be a lot of those guys out there. I know they're not necessarily the sexy names, and that's the downside of that. But it's the goal from here, as far as the quarterback position is concerned, is figuring out who else is part of this competition between what I'm calling Shedeur Sanders and Deshaun Watson, but also Dillon Gabriel, and how is that going to sort of look when you get that guy in here? Is it somebody that can legitimately compete with them? Or is it a rookie who you're going to let compete with them, but probably is on the outside looking in because, again, they're a year behind. They don't have the NFL experience yet, all those different things. That's what as far as the quarterback position is concerned, the kind of goal is for them moving forward. And I think it's what they're going to sort of sort through here in the coming days, weeks, and even months to a degree. I do want to talk more about, though, priorities for this team this offseason. I actually think Todd Monken sort of slipped a little bit in letting us know where their head's at with building the roster this offseason, specifically on the offensive side of the ball where they have their biggest needs. So I will talk about that likely on my my normal Friday show. So stay tuned for that because we got a lot more still to come from the NFL Combine here in Indianapolis. I am going to drop another show today, though, later today. Anthony Richardson's available, and I would not be surprised if the Browns get in the mix for him. I'll explain more, so make sure you check out that. Make sure you hit that subscribe button. Check out Locked On Browns wherever you get your podcast and at the Locked On Browns YouTube channel. You can also keep it local and check out Locked On Cavs and Locked On Guardians. Thank you for being every day at the Locked On Podcast Network. I will talk to you later today. See ya here on Locked On Browns.